It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 60, Timelash.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, baby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine, Stephen. It's like a person, you see.
Resulting reaction is finding.
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your classic tri-weekly Doctor Who review podcast. I am Eric, joining you with my friend.
Hey, this is Dan, also joining you with.
Yeah, we're all joining with each other. Dan, how are you? You were on vacation, right?
Well, yeah, I guess mini vacation. It's Memorial Day weekend, so we're up in Vermont.
Well, that's nice.
So I tried to find the most echoey room I could possibly find.
Now, is it
So I hope this works out.
Is it just the two of you, or are you with a large group?
No, it's the two of us and Joe's sister. So
Okay,
and then
that's cool.
and the dog. So we're just hanging out.
Nice.
But yeah, I
'cause
snuck away and spent some time watching Doctor Who while we were up here, which is fun.
Just getting the weird side eye from people.
Well-
I'm sure as they walk by and be like, what's
What is happening?
what's Dan doing?
I should have just made everyone watch it without any sort of context for what the story is.
Well,
or-
before
or
we
see
get
what
into the
happens.
stories, we should just let people know, because I know
Yeah.
people are into these sort of levels of detail, that we are recording on a Monday, as you said, on Memorial Day, not on a Sunday. We would have recorded yesterday, but I had no electricity. I had a tornado supposedly came through.
Was it actually a tornado?
I don't know. My neighbor, 2 houses down, said it was definitely a tornado. It probably was, because it hit like a town over, just one sort of spot, and then where we are, and then all around us, not really all that much damage, but here, massive tree went through my neighbor's house, like literally through the house.
Oh my goodness! You said
You
it
could
hit
see
them, but I
into
didn't
the
know.
house.
Oh my god!
Another person just spent all this time and money and energy last summer building like this beautiful outdoor deck with this arbor over it and all that stuff, and that's just pile of rubble. Huge trees and stuff down, so we had no power, so we couldn't record. But I was pretty.
Yeah, the most important thing, talking about
Yeah,
people's
really.
houses in ruins,
Oh my
but we
god,
couldn't
I
record.
was so sorry. We couldn't do the old Doctor Who show, so we're kind of even, right?
It's all the same.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think insurance is going to cover us not being able
Yeah,
to.
no,
record yesterday.
we were fine. I mean, there's no damage here, so I am
man,
blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
But yeah, so
Wow.
we got nothing else, right, to talk about
everything's-
before we get into the old Doctor,
Doctor
the old
Who.
Timelash.
Boy. Yeah, let's just.
All right,
we might
let's
as well
just-
just jump in.
Jump into the Timelash and hope we don't
Or stumble and fall in,
we'll
slightly
fall in
get
and
pushed.
hope we don't, hit a woman traveling in the opposite direction.
Don't tie a cord
we
around
go.
our waist.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All right, jump into the corridor and hit the button, please. All right.
You're in luck. It's Earth. There's a period you call 1179 AD.
Oh, we've never been to 12th century Earth.
As I seem to keep saying, that's beside the point. Once it's out of time tunnel, the TARDIS may undergo an adverse Contron effect.
Is that bad?
Bad! 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 You don't seem to realize the effect that time particles colliding within a multidimensional implosion field can have.
Hardly.
Well, the short answer is POW!
This is Timelash. This is the 5th serial of the 22nd season, everyone's favorite. It aired in 1985. It was written by Glenn McCoy of the McCoy Boys, a failed boy band out of England that ran into some trouble when their oldest member, Kipper, insisted that they record a men's rights anthem. Don't discriminate against me just because my dad owns the place. It was directed by Pennant Roberts. I'm not sure if the boy band part is accurate, but Peter...
It sounds right. It feels right.
Peter, my pool boy, insists that it is true. The TARDIS becomes caught in a Contron corridor, which is like a time corridor, but different, and nearly runs over a space lady who's traveling on the wrong side of the road. The Doctor and Perry land on planet Carafel. I can't remember how to pronounce it.
Caramel.
A caramel. It's a dystopian futurescape where its citizens live in fear of being thrown into the Timelash for transgressions against its secretive and sadistic leader, the Borad.
My wife.
Turns out the Borad
My wife.
isn't the cultish leader we think he is, but a half man, half Morlocks, who is in the midst of orchestrating the destruction of all humanoid life on his planet, save his precious dinosaur-like Morlaxi, whatever the plural.
You took Latin.
Dan, what did you think of Timelash?
I was prepared to dislike it more than I actually did.
Oh.
I think the story was fine. It was okay. It was some of the performances that I absolutely loved. Tecker, I could just watch an entire show with just Tecker. He chewed up the scenery.
Oh, he did.
Spit it out and then went in for seconds.
It was like some kind of Shakespearean dinner theater was performing nearby, and they were like, "We want that guy. Can we get the King Richard?" Yeah, that was a lot.
That was so much and horrible, but to the point where it was so bad it got good. I mean, he was excellent. Absolutely wonderful. And overall, it was an interesting story. There's just so much that was weird about it. But I don't know. Overall, it was fine. I'm sure my opinion will solidify once we talk about this more. What was your immediate take on this thing?
I will say the good things. I feel like there is a good to very good story in here. But it was too long. The second half was much worse, I felt, than the first half, because it's a two-part story, 2 45-minute parts. The second half felt like just getting dragged along a road, with a rope. How's that for an image? I don't know. I would say overall it was terrible. Okay. Just in a lot of ways, it felt cheap. The acting, as you said, like not everybody did the best performance. But you can still see it wasn't the worst thing we've ever seen. Like, no, this was not. I feel like Twin Dilemma would have been worse than this if I was ranking them, but it's not far off from that. And I felt like from the first half I was like, okay, this could be kind of cool. And then again by the end, I just felt like, God, what's happening? What's happening to us? So let's talk a little bit, I guess, about the characters. You've got Tecker, who, the overacting and it loops around and becomes enjoyable. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, because of that. You've got Mike Croce, who I don't know what about you, but I was like, oh, that looks like Don Jr. if he had a chin. Like if you surgically implanted a chin into the President of the United States' son.
Yes.
He kind of would look like that. You've got a Malin, who's the former Malin. I guess that's the title. That gets passed down.
The father of Vina, the only woman apparently that's allowed to have any sort of power. There was so much misogyny. There was so much misogyny in this story.
Well, there's a lot of weird stuff. Well, sure, certainly we have Vina, like you're talking about. So she's the daughter of the original Malin, and she's sort of like in this cult. I believe everything. The leader's all knowing and good, right? And then she immediately changes. She becomes the leader of the rebellion 10 minutes later. I guess.
So she's supposed to marry Mikros. They're engaged, and her father is the current Malin. So she's very much, like you said, seemingly or outwardly believing that the Borad,
my wife,
is actually a benevolent leader who is taking care of them and doing what needs to be done to keep them safe. And the fact that they never see him except on a screen is all for safety reasons, etc. But her fiance Mikros is absolutely kind of against all this. Not so far that he's going to be one of the rebels that we see get captured and thrown into the time lash, but he's doing this stage whisper the entire time. Every time someone says something about the boy,
My wife.
it's like, yeah, that guy's a real piece of work. Like
you establish in this
room,
world, they have listening devices everywhere where they have to have a secret meeting in the back energy room where, because of some whatever rays, I wrote down whatever the rays are running.
Doesn't
but
matter.
Yet this guy won't shut his mouth. Like, he's literally feet away from the secret police captain or whatever, and he's just like,
it is a room of it's a room of less than a dozen people, and he's talking at full volume. I mean, obviously, sure, maybe it's a stage whisper, but it was really ridiculous. Yeah, so he almost dies right away.
So they're a couple, and the Don Jr. Mikros, whatever, is saying, "Hey, the society's crumbling, blah blah blah," and she's like, "No, it's all for the good of blah blah blah." And I guess it takes her own father's death. That's the moment that she switches.
Her father's death, her mother's death. She's in a hospital. One we never see.
Yeah, we never find out what happens
power.
other than she's hooked up to life support, and the dad's just going to reroute the power to...
Right, and then the father dies, but she doesn't mention that her mom might be dead.
No one cares about mom.
That's it. No one cares.
Yeah, she's mentioned once. There aren't a lot of female characters. We have the...
Well, we have a leader of the...
It opens with a female rebel murdered.
Yes.
But it's, immaterial. I'm wondering what you think of that scene.
There's Katz, who was female leader of the rebels.
That's not
Katz
the same
and
person.
Sezon.
It's not the same person.
No, it's a different one. I'm just saying, in terms of female characters,
yes,
we actually had one that was one of the heads of the rebels. We had Vina. Well, I just want to say real quick, I mean, the misogyny starts from the very beginning. Well, let's just leave aside Perry and the Doctor, because that's its own relationship that we should talk about.
She can't even pick where they go. She can't even pick where they go. And then she's petrified that he's going to take her home, and we should put that in its own section and let's
bracket that, and we'll come back to that in a second. I just want to make just a small point that there's a moment between Vina and her father, the Malin, and Mikros. The three of them are there, and the father says something along the lines of how willful women these days are, or something. It was really awful.
Yeah.
And Mikros has this sort of double entendre, meaning that he hopes that she can see his way at some point, meaning that he hopes to convert her to being a rebel, but to the father, obviously not. Or maybe not obviously, because the two of them end up in that electric utility closet and end up conspiring. It's just silly.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway, there's a lot of misogyny going on.
Get your wife in line. And then later, at the end, H.G. Wells is like, "This is men's work," or whatever. There's that whole scene. Right. Talking about just the beginning.
Yes.
So there's three rebels, 2 men and a woman, who are sort of escaping, and you get a lot of backstory that
they're running through a beige office park.
Yeah, they are.
The entire place is just. I mean, and they make a reference to how dull and boring it is. Perry's talking about how it's not shiny, which was just a weird.
That's the whole.
I know it comes back later.
Yeah,
I know, but it's like
plot point.
It's just a stupid observation. No one would ever say it's dull. It's not shiny. Nothing has reflection.
That's what I mean. That when I say this is a terrible story, I mean it. But the part about the dystopian type future where it's a 1984 world is cool. It's just the execution's terrible. But to stick with those three rebels, so the Blue Man group with shoulder pads, the androids with the high voice.
The sing-songy high voice.
They kidnap, or he takes the girl and brings her to the Borat.
My wife.
And he kills her. Now, do you think that whole exchange is because he's evaluating whether or not he wants to mate with her?
Ooh, you're actually giving it more depth than I think it deserves.
Well, because otherwise his whole plan involves having to create more of these, and that's why he needs Perry to make a wife that he's going to have, or a mate, so he can make babies that are half man, half Morlocks.
Morlocks, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, has he just been collecting women to find a mate, and then he sees Perry and he's like, "Oh, this is the new one." Because otherwise,
is that his plan? I mean, I don't. It didn't feel like he was his plan until Perry and the Doctor showed up.
No,
it just wasn't clear what he was doing.
He was orchestrating this war with their that was
with the
whole
Bandrel.
thing, and he was trying to get them because they had a weapon that killed humans only, but left everything else intact, which doesn't make a lot of sense because biologically he's still half human. So does. But in any case, it's fine.
To be even more clear about it, it's a weapon that destroys anything with a central nervous system. But that still doesn't seem like. I mean, and they make a reference to the fact that these Morlocks are sort of reptilian at some point, and reptiles have central nervous systems. So it was just a bad, like, if you're gonna pick something that's quasi sciencey, like, just pick something better.
Right.
Like,
but just assuming
write it better.
Yeah, just
anyway.
that it kills humans.
Yes, it's supposed to kill humans. They could have just said that. It kills humans.
But I think
blah.
that was his plan the entire that's what he's building to.
It was just a plan in slow motion.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was mate selection and he didn't like the way she looked or something, and then he,
Yeah. That does give it, I think, more credit than it deserves. But I like that.
Well, because there's a lot of those weird scenes where it's like some character sees the Borat,
my wife,
for what the Borat,
my wife,
really is.
Yes.
And she gets killed. The original leader, the original Malin, is talking to the AI or whatever, the TV screen version of it, and sees the real one.
The fake one.
Everyone is shocked except for Tecker. So did Tecker always know that it was a lizard person? Because all of a sudden he's just hanging out with there's no reaction. He's cool.
Right. I just think Tecker plays it cool, man.
He's just a cool dude.
This is a cool dude. It's like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. I'm down with that. That's fine.
He just likes power, that guy.
That's a lot of it.
All right.
So we start. Let's just go a little chronological. We got Perry and the Doctor in the TARDIS arguing about where to go. I mean, they're arguing to a point that it just seems like it's getting progressively worse every story, that they seem to like each other less and less. And like you said, he threatens / offers to take her back to Earth, and she desperately doesn't want to go. But I don't see why. I still don't understand why.
Right. It's a dark thing. It's very dark. Her whole story arc is very dark, because if you remember when we first saw her, there's some weird stuff going on with her and her stepfather. So I feel like Perry's got a lot of issues with these male
father figures in authority. Okay.
And so she does not want to go home because whatever stepdad was going on. Although, didn't he get turned into something silver?
Yeah, he didn't quite. It didn't work out well for him.
But she does not want to go home. But she lives in this world where she has no power. She can't even pick where they go. He just yells too much. I think
he yells so much.
It's a trait that Colin Baker's running with that I wish he didn't, but it's like even that opening scene, he yells like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, and it's supposed to. I think at one point it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah, it's supposed to be funny.
It doesn't read funny at all. No, it's horrible,
uncomfortable. And poor Perry, and then does he even give her the ability to choose? And then she's like, "Oh, I can't have my own choice. Just
basically
go anywhere where you want to go." Like it's this.
Where would you like to go? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're in a poison relationship. And speaking of poison relationships, I felt also watching this, it just popped in my head. I was like, I miss Tegan. I kind of wish Tegan was back for some reason. I don't know why I thought that, but I'm just throwing.
How do you think Tegan would be with Colin Baker? Maybe she put him in his place.
Yeah, she at least has some. I think a little bit more than Perry, but I think Perry in her own head is really trying to get that American accent down, because this story felt like she had the most trouble with it. Like it felt like it was going in and out at times. Like she was having a little bit of issues.
Yeah, it was. And I can't quite place exactly what she's doing wrong, but it's so obviously just not right at all. But anyway, yeah. On the plus side, she didn't have to wear her leotard anymore.
She got a new outfit. I thought the new outfit was a step up.
Sure. Right. I mean, it was a little corporate, but then again, they were going to an office park, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
1980s, so it worked.
Needed bigger shoulder pads, and she would have been fine.
So many.
It was just everything on. So they get getting sucked into this time corridor, this whatever it was called again. What was
it was Contron or something.
Contron. I keep saying, want to say Contron time corridor, The doctor pulls out the belts that they have to strap in onto the console with.
Yeah, God, yes. Yeah. Those like bungee things. It looked like one of those like
kinda
cheap weight loss things that you would have seen in like
the
60s or something where they're going to burn some fat.
They're just getting their extra. Well, which is ironic because she's not in workout wear for the first time, and they're going to actually do some real aerobics.
Just timed it better. It would have
been so much better.
Perry workout tape.
That's too bad. So they get sucked into the time corridor, and I can't stand what they did with the audio manipulation in the story. When they're in the time corridor and they sound like they're on helium. But then you also have the android whose voice is also singing songs like this the whole time. It's just
in a time corridor.
Really, yes, he's just stuck in time.
That's where he lives.
Oh, I just couldn't stand it.
And then you've got like the secret police who look like beekeepers for some reason.
Yeah, that was honestly the first thing I wrote. Was like, are they also beekeepers?
I'm assuming that has to be the case, that they're also on the side trying to save bees.
It's colony collapse disorder. They're trying to.
No one knows why. Nobody knows why.
Still don't know.
R.I.P. bees. So they all right. So they get trapped into this time corridor.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember why. Was there a reason why they got caught? It was just luck.
Because the story had to go someplace. Okay. I think that was pretty much it.
And while they're headed towards its source, which is this planet the Doctor has been to before, although we have not seen him.
Well,
assuming
at first,
John Pertwee had been there. Can
we come back to that in just a second, though?
Okay, so they pass this woman heading in the opposite direction.
Yes, but the time corridor itself, when they first encounter it, he says it's taking them to Earth because they had just had the conversation that he could drop her off on Earth in 1984 or whatever it was that she came from.
Yeah, but then they're going to go to 18-something, right?
Well, no, first it was supposed to be 11 it was supposed to be 11 something or other. Was originally where they're going to go back to. So it wasn't really. Yeah, I guess that would be the end of it. So then they followed back toward the source, which would be this planet that apparently he's been to before.
There's a ton of things that don't make any sense, though, because what I was going to say is they're heading towards the source, and then this woman's heading the opposite direction. They see the apparition of Vina, right? So she's... Because I guess there's two stories happening simultaneously. Yes. So on the...
You guys have watched this. You know what happened.
Right. So that whole... We'll talk about that. Let's just stick with the Doctor and Perry.
Yes.
So she goes the opposite direction. The Doctor mentions that something happened and he knocks her off course. Right?
Yes.
So assuming everyone before her went to some
11 whatever AD. Yep.
And now she gets knocked off course because the TARDIS is there and it ends up in
80 something. Yeah.
Does everyone after that gets sent through there go to the original thing, or do they end up in the 1800s?
Well,
they all go to Earth because at the end,
because why not?
This dumb thing about how the Loch Ness monster is created.
So stupid, just so stupid.
Which seems dangerous because the guy could just. He's smart. He's not just going to be a Loch Ness monster. Plus, they send a bunch of androids through the same Timelash.
Yeah, it doesn't make...
Where are they? Are they on Earth?
I think it's always Earth because... Why? I don't know. I think it was only while the TARDIS was in the time corridor that they got shunted off into the 1800s because at the end, when they send the future Loch Ness monster into the time corridor, he says he's got about 1,000 years to swim around until people see him, whatever. So I think it was they do end up going back to the 1100s, which I don't know.
This is the least of the problems. The fact that they're just throwing androids, high-pitched androids into this time portal that are apparently landing on Earth to wander the Earth for years. And why wouldn't the Loch Ness monster eventually just get out of the water? And then take over.
Right, he's not aquatic.
No.
He's not. He's not even amphibian. I mean, the Morlocks aren't aquatic.
Yeah,
they live in a cave.
Equal human, his evolution is not continuing where he'll just become full lizard. He's going to stay both.
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't make any sense and it doesn't matter.
It totally doesn't matter. So, all right, was there? I even forgot.
Was there a point to any of this?
So it doesn't matter. So they land on this planet, right? So it's
right.
This is a planet the Doctor has been to before as John Pertwee's third Doctor. Why? Because they have a mural that they've covered over for some reason.
God, that was so stupid. Well, but I did like that people on this planet have heard of the Doctor before. Like there were stories about him and when he came hundreds of years
weird
before.
stories. Like, so the Katz, who is this rebel girl, keeps a locket of Joe Grant in her pocket that she got from her grandfather. How awkward was it for her grandfather and her grandmother, the fact that he's carrying around a locket of some woman? Like, how would that fly? If I was carrying around a locket of some other woman.
You don't know you don't know what's like inside their marriage, okay? That's for them.
Well, then, it was just a weird thing. Like, and it's a family heirloom to pass it down from generation. Who is this? We're not really sure. She was here for 3 days. 200 years ago. But
so were you confused about that whole thing? The fact that the doctor had been there before, and I mean, I just assumed it was a story we hadn't seen.
That's what I assume. So it's a story that never happened, though, right?
It's a story that never happened.
Yeah, and I only found that out
afterwards. Yeah, because I wanted to go back and see, like, oh, is this a thing that we should? I just wanted to do the research and see, like, is this stuff that we should know about? But no, they just made that up because it makes it easier for them to just say whatever they wanted to say because they don't have to fit it around anything, and it just lets them.
Strange.
It was very strange. I mean,
which is fine. So, I mean, again, the connection to Pertwee error. It really had no bearing on the story, though, other than it was a way of when Perry gets rescued, that the Katz woman would know that she's a friend because she knew she recognized the picture, but
yeah, she recognized the photo of
Joe Grant. How often did that come up? I don't know. It was a very
there's right. There's literally no way that we've seen that Perry would know anything about it unless she was wandering through the TARDIS and the Doctor has like a room dedicated to his previous companions, and she just, I don't know.
What she should have had was a locket with a picture of Peter Davison in it, and then she would have recognized him, and then you would have implied maybe he had some kids on the side, and she is actually half Time Lord. You didn't need to say that, but you could have planted that.
Right. So it's instead of Pertwee, it could have been Davison
in the locket,
right?
And then she would open the locket and would have been
no. But I mean,
my grandfather that no one recognizes.
Right. That would have been so much better. You are a professional storyteller. You should be doing this.
All right. So we get there. We get to the plan. What we should say is before. This story stinks because
it's so bad.
It's just like there's lots of dumb stuff. So they're in this society. The Borat,
my wife,
talks, and I actually liked the actor that portrayed the fake Borat.
My wife.
Like that's that's a cult I could get behind. Like I could see people like it should have just been him as the thing, and it could have been like a cult like thing.
Right. Oh, he could have been Morlocks from the waist down.
Yeah, you didn't need
you start to see it.
That would have been awesome. That's why you never see him as the camera pans down. And I like that. We could put something together. Right. So the original leader hides out in the broom cupboard where they keep their computer, and there's no listening devices. Although there are. There's a line about how the key when it's
shielded,
and it's shielded from the rays,
and it's a mirror. The amulet's a mirror.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like the last mirror because you can't have mirrors because the guy can't see himself.
But why? Why can't he see himself?
Vanity?
Is that really the thing that causes him to lose all motor function?
Well, when he sees himself, there's so many things like that where
it makes me so angry.
Right, the way that they overcome whatever adversary is, even when she originally goes into the Timelash. There's like a scuffle or something, and no one else is helping. Like there's hundreds of beekeepers, but they just don't do anything. And like these little fights happen with pushing, and the doctor's pushing people in, and it's like the worst run military I think that I've ever seen. As far as secret police, D-. You know what I mean?
Not one of the best.
Right. They've got the ideology down, but execution is not their strong suit.
Right.
But anyway, so they're in the broom closet, and like you said before, there's your wife's in a hospital on life support for some reason. We don't know why. And he's basically turning the power off on all the, not just his wife.
Everything.
Killing, but
everyone.
He's going to do it
all
anyway.
The power is going to get shunted into the Borad's
my wife
control room or whatever.
Yeah. So
and why it has to be done that way? It just seems so convoluted. I mean, sure, fine, it's for the story, but like, it just seems so dumb that the Borat,
my wife,
needs to have this Malin who's primary job besides keeping order is to work the power controls for him. It just seems like
it does seem stupid.
This genius scientist couldn't come up with a better way to control his own power. It just seems really ridiculous.
And the other thing, so then he is quietly rebelling. You know, he tells his son-in-law to be.
He's rebellish. He's not really.
Like, he won't do it himself, but he's like, I'm not going to stop you if you do it. And that little line,
keep my daughter and me out of it.
That cost him his life.
Yes.
So immediately after,
with the age beam.
Yeah, but here's my question. Immediately after, both men come out of the closet. No questions. No questions asked.
No questions, guys.
Whatever's going on is totally.
He was
fine.
just helping me in there. He was just helping me.
They only take the mail-in. At that point, they know both of them are quote-unquote traitors to the Empire. Why didn't he just grab both of them and execute both of them? He lets the other guy go only to grab him later.
Right. He's just going to grab him later. I don't know why the Borat...
My wife.
Wanted
because he plays in the little clip. He's like, oh yeah, well, check this out. I got you. He's like, the other guy's the one doing the open rebellion.
I think he's just sadistic. I mean, the Borat's...
My wife.
Just on top of being
he is,
half
but
Morlocks, is
like
just sadistic. So he wanted to do that face-to-face. Yeah. And he wanted to use his magical age beam on him. His unidirectional magical age beam.
Thing, and the dumb drop of the pile of bones at the end, where it's just so stupid.
Clunk. It just clunk onto the ground. So that's fun.
Yeah, so they got a bit of time control, right? That massive aging thing. So is that a beam that accelerates aging, or is it trapping it in some kind of time thing and then speeding up time until you die? We don't know, right?
Oh, we don't know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No one. The writer doesn't know. No one knows. Literally no one knows.
Matter. So then he puts in charge Tecker, who is the overacting guy. Who, again, not the worst part of this. Like as far as his hamminess or whatever, however you want.
So bad at first. I hated it at first. Hated it.
Yeah, but
and then
he would make kind of a good
yeah.
villainy kind of mustache twirling and everything. So he tells the daughter, like, oh, your dad's dead and we're sorry. He doesn't say why. And then moments later, he says exactly why, that he's a traitor. So that was also a little strange.
Yeah.
Right? It's like sort of like, oh, something happened. He had a heart attack. They're basically not saying we've killed him, but implying we've killed him.
And then 2 seconds later, but yeah, we killed him.
2 seconds later, her husband comes out and he's like, why are you arresting him? Because him and your dad did, whatever.
Right. There was no long game there. It was a very short game.
Yeah, she grabs the thing off in the slowest grab. The guy has no reaction to losing his...
No, not until seconds after it's off of his neck. Then he reaches for it. Oh, where did it go?
I forget again now. Why is that thing so important?
That's the amulet that helps control... the mirror that controls the energy closet.
Right. So
that's it.
Why do they carry it? Or like, it seems like just keep that someplace safe.
You would think keep it next to the control where you're going to need to use it, but maybe that also lets him into the room.
They get it back, right?
Well, okay, so she takes it,
and they still don't.
Vina takes it. She falls into the time lash. She goes floating by Perry and the doctor.
Yeah, she ends up with H.G. Wells, who is not.
Dumb.
We don't know he's H.G. Wells, and I want to talk a little bit about Herbert.
Yeah, let's talk about Herbert.
I found Herbert to be more enjoyable as a companion most of the time than
I liked
Perry,
him
because at least I felt like he was like he screwed up and stuff, and he would lie and he'd sneak into things, but bumbling. He was driven by curiosity.
Yep.
And it was at least somebody was doing like I didn't mind. Like I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll see where this goes. I mean, he gets a little annoying at the end. But I didn't mind him. What did you think about Herbert?
Yeah, no, I liked him best on Earth in his parlor or whatever. Like I thought, oh, this is actually kind of fun. I did know it was H.G. Wells only because I had read that by accident, so it was fine, which was okay.
I knew it was somebody. I was like, oh, this is going to be somebody, but I didn't put the
yeah. I had accidentally had that spoiled, but that didn't matter. I liked him with the whole seance thing that he's doing. He's into the occultism and the spiritualism, and Vina appears and he thinks she's a spirit. That was kind of fun. the Doctor appearing there, and he tries to exorcise him or whatever with his cross. That moment was actually kind of fun, and the Doctor was in that scene kind of charming, actually, and it's something I'd like to see much more of. From the way that Colin Baker portrays the Doctor.
He was charming to a point, but then he also, I felt like when the guy kept asking, like, I just want to go, he was like, nope.
But which was
I
also...
because it was dangerous, but he felt a little like more that he was annoyed by everything and everyone than he was trying to save the guy.
Herbert just kept asking over and over and over again. It did get a little on my nerves.
Yeah. Right, so then he sneaks. He's a stowaway. He sneaks onto the TARDIS and then joins our
adventure. How did he get onto the TARDIS this time? The first time. Yeah, how did he get on?
I can't remember, but didn't he? I'm assuming he just walked on, right? Or snuck on.
How?
Was that like a reveal and you just saw him hiding and you didn't know how he got there? Because I can't remember.
So he sneaks onto the TARDIS twice. The second time, it's because... the Doctor orders Perry to get off the TARDIS because he's going to go and crash the TARDIS into the missile that's coming at the planet. We'll get to that later. He opens the door again to have Perry come out, and that's when Herbert slips in the second time, and he hides underneath the console. But the first time, the Doctor and Vina go onto the TARDIS, and they're in the control room, and then Herbert comes walking out from one of the back passageways with a notebook and like writing all this down. But how the hell did he get in there?
It's fine.
It's not. I mean, anything.
He's a crafty person. He figured it out.
But he's clearly not. We see this later that he's just not.
We're dealing with half men, half Morlocks.
I know I'm getting obsessed about the minutia of it, but that just bothered. Let's get back. Okay, so I mean, it does come into play that there has been this encounter in the past with the Doctor on this planet. So the Borad,
my wife,
who was previously a scientist that the Doctor had some dealings with and apparently was friendly with, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, they have a history. But when the Doctor lands there, so they have this sort of reception ceremony, we find out the Doctor has been there before. I think even Tecker or whatever recognizes him. But the adventures of the Doctor have been scrubbed from the history books. But some of the older people still remember the Doctor. It's why it would still make more sense if she had a picture of the Doctor in her locket, keeping it secret. It would be something that would be punishable. But instead it's Joe Grant, who I guess could be punishable.
Right.
Thing that didn't happen. But then, so there's this weird thing. That's when Perry starts talking. There's no reflection. The color's too drab or whatever she says. They send Perry on a walk. The Doctor already should sense that something's wrong. But he has no problem sending Perry with
to take a tour of whatever. That they're very insistent that she goes by herself. His alarm bells sort of...
Yeah, there's lots of red flags for the Doctor.
Can we just, before Perry goes off on her excursion of doom, that she's interested in the plants because she's a bit of a botanist, which is not at all the case, but that's fine.
Yes, I forgot about that.
And she's sniffing the plant that shoots acid. I mean, it's just so dumb. So they did that just to set it up later that she could escape by throwing a potted plant at the beekeeper. Like, that's why they had to... That was...
Yeah. And they also take that same potted plant and they throw it in the Doctor's face.
Nothing happens.
And that scene, but nothing happens. And then when I was watching, I was like, "Oh, were they just making all that up?"
I thought Tecker was. I thought Tecker was just messing with her and saying, "Yeah, it shoots acid." Yeah. But then she uses it, or maybe that beekeeper was just really allergic. Maybe that's all it was. She knew it.
I don't know. It's dumb.
So Perry goes off and escapes from the beekeeper by throwing a potted plant in his face, and then finds her way into the tunnel. She was given a note by a guy before he's about to be killed to meet a person she doesn't know in a place that she's not familiar with. So it means he could have just written completely just nothing on the piece of paper, and it would have had the same effect, except that she drops it later, so they're able to find her. Anyway, so she luckily wanders into the exact place that she's supposed to meet the exact person who's there. But anyway, so she goes into the caves, and she immediately comes upon a Morlocks. What'd you think of the Morlocks as far as creature design?
I mean, it was not the best, but it looked...
I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked okay up close,
but the fact that it can move about 3 feet was really bad.
Yeah, the movements and stuff. Yeah, the movements and stuff where it showed,
and they stayed
great.
on that. Perry reacting to being terrified, and the Morlocks swaying back and forth, and then Perry terrified. They kept that going for a good 30 seconds when nothing was happening. Like she was in no danger because the thing could obviously not come any closer because that was as long as they had money to create a creature for. Yeah, it wasn't scary at all. So she's going to get eventually at some point eaten by this Morlocks, and then she gets rescued by the rebels. Now, when the rebels come in, and then there's an android on fire, what did you think at that moment? Like, what? I mean, I was just like, okay, I guess that happened.
I was like, okay, but there's an android that
did you think fire. Like I was like, did I miss something? I'm not gonna rewind it and go back and figure out why he's there now, but he was just there's an android on fire and they can escape. Yeah.
It was just I was like, okay, all right. So I was like, oh, was he coming?
And they shot him or something.
Her,
yeah.
And then
I assumed like he followed her and they shot him, but that's not what happened. And we find out later what happened. But
yeah, I felt like part.
Anyway, that was awesome.
Yeah. It's a little message from the future. So she's taken in by these rebels, which we talked about already, that Katz, the rebel girl, has the locket with Joe Grant that she's been carrying around for years, and her children will also carry around this Joe Grant locket. That puts them together, but then they're instantly captured again, because you said within minutes, I had a note, and then I dropped the note, and then that led them
directly to them.
Led the bad guys directly to them. So they all get captured, and they're all going to get time lashed, except for Perry, because the guy wants Borat.
My wife
wants her untouched and taken to him.
His wife.
To turn her into his wife. So wife.
My wife.
I'm so sorry.
It fits. It actually fits
right
perfectly. Yeah, so the doctor, meanwhile, without Perry, completely, I don't know if you felt this.
Didn't care.
Perry is not even a priority.
Not even mentioned.
To find her or to rescue her. She's just in the background. Like, I feel like the doctor's doing a bunch of things, and one of them is not finding her.
It is most...
He's spelunking in the time...
Holy crap! Did that take a lot longer than it needed to? I mean, those scenes of the doctor being lowered into the time lash with a big rope, with a half a dozen men holding up the rope. Luckily, though, Vina didn't help out because that's man's work. Obviously, she's standing there waving her hands around, like, "Oh, I hope they can pull him up." Like, grab the freaking rope. Okay, so they lower him in, and he's going to go collect time crystals, and there's just like tinsel flying everywhere, which is just so ridiculous. And he goes and grabs these crystals, and it goes on and on and on.
It goes on, and there's no immediate. I mean, the danger is they're going to let go, but I kept expecting the bad guys to come. Like, it was going to be like the bad guys were going to come in, but nope, they just lower them, and then they send a couple of guys in to pull them up.
They're not able to pull him back up because it's just whatever. I don't know. He's getting sucked in. So there's half a dozen guys holding the rope, and then two of them go in instead, and they're still able to hold them up. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's fallen. They should have all fallen. At that point,
he should have fallen to his death. But I guess the doctor was sitting on the styrofoam, right?
Stupid.
It was really dumb, and it was long. And this could have been one 45-minute story. Yeah, there's so much filler, and there's so many scenes like that go on.
Yeah, they could have cut half of the second part, and it would have been okay. Like you said earlier, the first half of the story went pretty quickly. I mean, it wasn't great, whatever, but it was like interesting and it kept moving at a good clip. This second half was almost entirely filler. So the doctor gets these crystals, and with them he creates a couple of different little weapons that he's going to use.
He does. He gets the thing that allows him to freeze time and be ahead of time so he could walk around and do stuff, but you still see him in the past.
Right. It creates a 10-second delay
Kind of.
projection of where he was. So he stays kind of out of phase. But then he has that little viewer that
He's got a little telescope
that
lets you
Hubert's able to
both
see,
people.
which was
fine.
just so. I mean, was that?
But what's the point of the viewer?
Okay, so that's what I was just going to ask.
H.G. Wells is using it, right?
Yes,
Or is it?
he's the only one that
Don
gets
Jr.?
to use it. No.
Okay, so H.G. Wells is up there and he's looking.
This is the second
at
time.
the doctor.
So there's the first time where there's the first time the doctor demonstrates it, and he's sitting there at the table, and they're all locked into the room together, and he demonstrates and does the whole thing, and no one looks through the viewer. So we, as the audience, have seen this, and they've fully explained it, and this is what's happening. And then later, when the doctor is with the Borat,
My wife.
he does it again, and H.G. Wells is a peeping Tom with his little Viewmaster watching it. I mean, I would have expected that they used that the first time around to help explain to the audience, for all the slowpokes in the audience, of what's going on so they could see what's happening. Because it didn't really do anything to...
No, like that. Yeah, there was no moment where H.G. Wells.
We were
"Now
never
you do your
confused
part."
about it. Yeah.
It was just, he was just watching.
We were
the
just
show,
watching it. And
having some fun.
it's like, oh, okay, so the doctor is no longer where the Borat
My wife.
thought he was. When he shoots at him, he's not there. But we know that. We've already seen... They've explained it fully to us. It didn't make... It was not useful.
The other benefit of time crystals is you can shoot energy into them, and then after a very long delay,
Another 10 seconds.
It shoots back, and the doctor uses that to destroy a clone. We find out.
Well,
That's a whole
okay,
other
before
dumb
he does
thing.
it, the first time he uses it, they're all in that main chamber where the Timelash is, and they're locked in there. And outside there, the beekeepers have a big cannon, and there's an android, and they're blowing down the wall. And his whole plan is that they're going to shoot this massive energy beam in there, and he's going to suck into the crystal and save them with it. All that manages to happen is they blow down the door, they kill a whole bunch of people, and then that energy gets redirected and destroys one android. Like, it wasn't some big plan. Like, I thought, oh, he's going to, use this energy and it's going to reverse time and that will have never happened or they can escape. No, it just shoots the energy back and destroys one android. Meanwhile, other people are slaughtered. Makes no sense. Like, that's just dumb.
And then when he uses it again, though,
Yes.
against the Borat,
My wife.
he tricks him into shooting the age crystal or age ray
Yes.
into the crystal.
Yeah.
And the whole time he explains, like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Now what's going to happen?
You
Hold on,
tricked
wait.
me.
5, 4, hold on. Don't
stay right there. Don't
Hold,
move.
3. And he's not moving, and he's going, what? Oh, you got me.
Yeah. You
got
he
me,
says
and then he gets
You
hit with
tricked
it.
me. No, you tricked yourself. To try to, he's not a murderer, but he is. He totally just killed him too.
And where's his android guards at that point? He just hangs out in that room alone.
All by himself.
There's no...
There were so many times too when they would come into the room. This is before like the reveal of who the bar
My wife.
really was. He's just sitting there in a bejeweled chair off to the side with the back of the chair facing us, and no one notices it standing there, and they're talking to the old man projection instead. But there's clearly a guy in a big bedazzled chair.
Yeah, there are those scenes I felt like, yeah, that's the first time we get the reveal with the mail-in.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the old guy, or what he thinks is the old guy.
Right.
And you're right. A foot and a half away is the other guy, and he literally like shuffles over and then sees the
Slides
other
over
guy.
in an office chair.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
It's like, which voice is like it's so stupid.
Yeah, it wasn't like he could have been behind a partition. He could have been,
anywhere.
Literally anywhere, except in the same room 3 feet behind him. Fine, whatever.
So then the time crystals, he kills the Borat.
My wife.
And he's not actually dead. And there's 2 times that happens. So what we mentioned earlier that we have to talk about again is they have allies who are starving because they're withholding grain.
Oh,
so I guess this is a agricultural
allies.
plant.
No, you mean there's the Bandrel that are the enemy.
They were former allies.
Formerly. Yes.
Are waging war.
He's trying to start this war.
Part of their treaty at one point was they supplied grain, and in return they got something else. I don't know. They've stopped supplying grain to the point where these people are starving. They're like, we're not warlike creatures, although we have the best weapons in the universe.
It's a great weapon.
And we're going to invade. And so once Tekker's in charge, he's like, invade away. We're gonna, our guy's bigger than your guy. We have weapons. I'd hate to use the weapons. What our weapons will do.
Right. Go ahead, little Rocket Man. You can go ahead.
Yeah, he's calling him Rocket Man. So that invasion is ongoing. So we're in the process of that. So there's this sort of ticking time bomb, and the ships are being sent over. And so the Doctor, once he thinks he's killed the Borat,
My wife.
jumps onto the transmission and is like, you got to stop this. I'm the Doctor, Gallifrey, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then he's got to prove that he's the Doctor by showing them the corpse of the guy they've never seen. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
For whatever
whatever
case.
reason.
So he's got to do that, and there's no time to do that. So the Doctor flies the TARDIS. He yells at everybody. Nobody
He
can
tells
help
Perry
him.
to get off there. HG slips
H.G.
on.
Wells, of course, sneaks on. This is man's work.
Yep.
And the Doctor's like, yeah, I guess it is.
If you qualify, sure.
Yeah. The TARDIS puts itself in between the missile and the planet.
Yes.
And is destroyed.
The missile blows up.
As far as the readings go.
It looks like, yep.
Oh, he's dead.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the Borat
My wife.
shows up.
What?
And then all of a sudden, the Doctor and H.G. Wells
Also show up.
And the Doctor just says, they're like, we thought you were dead. He's like, that's a story for another time.
Right.
Essentially. There's no, okay. And then the Borat
My wife.
is, you didn't know that I have clones.
Right.
How many clones does he have? He only made one?
He could have millions of clones. We don't know. This story keeps going after the Doctor leaves.
Shared consciousness is an individual, like
Right.
all of that was just thrown in at the end.
It wasn't just like a genetic copy. Like he picked up mid-sentence. Like it was was it a shared? It doesn't make any sense.
How many are there? Who cares?
It doesn't matter. But the fact, you nailed that part though. Like Perry asked the Doctor, why weren't you blown up? And his reply is, I'll explain one day. It's just so lazy. That's just so lazy. And Perry makes a reference to like you said the TARDIS is indestructible at some point. She says that. And
she does, and then he says like it is, but
maybe not. It's so
whatever
lazy. Okay.
And even if you let that slide, it's just such a dumb scene. It's one of those things where you have a bunch of things that are unearned.
Yes.
And then you have a plot twist, but there's nothing to the
It's not even twisty. Yeah.
It's just, hey, it was a clone before.
It's a very similar thing to like, a horror movie. Like I finally killed the bad guy and I'm going to lean over his corpse and he sticks his hand up and grabs you. Like it's just like one of those like, oh, that thing. I've just seen that. Oh, I have a clone. It just felt real dumb.
Right. And then it gets super dumb. So if you think like, it's not dumb yet, well, we're going to get super dumb.
We'll end dumbing it.
And then we get the mirror thing where he rips it's behind the Pertwee wall, right?
How did he know that was there? Okay, first of all, he's
been there before.
He breaks down the wall and reveals the mural of Pertwee from earlier. But he knew that behind the mural, Pertwee was also a mirror. And he knew that would incapacitate the Borat.
My wife.
So that he literally couldn't do anything. He covered his face and he's just kind of wheeling around and can't.
A vampire? Like if it was a vampire creature or something. And why would a vampire can't have a reflection? It's not like that.
But why would he even be like?
Listen, vampire fans, I don't want to hear your email. I know mirrors don't kill vampires.
I can hear you all typing right now, vampires.
Spitballing here.
But so. Why, if it's like, oh, I can't bear to look at my reflection, what monster have I become? No, he's not like that at all. He wants everyone to be like this. He's proud of the accomplishment that this mutation has turned him into. He's smarter, he lives longer, he wants this entire race of these. So why would the reflection even trouble him? If anything, he should be like entranced by his reflection, like I'm pretty amazing. It was just so dumb. And then he just gets maneuvered into position right in front of, like, you can even see him, like, shuffle step up the little ramp towards the Timelash over the course of what felt like 20 minutes.
It's terrible. It's a bad ending. And he's got Perry, too, we should say, as a hostage, where he's going to do horrible things to her, gouging her eyes out.
Yeah, that's right.
It gets super dark. But then when he sees himself, she sees him and screams. That's what triggers it, right? Because he
well, yeah,
for some reason he wants her to love him, and the idea that she wouldn't love him
because of the way he
whatever it
looks.
takes. So dumb. And then she screams because she sees. That's the doctor's plan, right? You can murder Perry, but if she screams, you got to let her go.
Yeah. Yes. Yes,
right.
That
or
was his plan.
That no one agreed to. That
no one agreed to.
Hey, it's not that bad.
No one agreed to this plan. I'm sorry. I'm talking over you. That's ridiculous.
So dumb. It's super dumb. Yeah, and then he gets sent back to Earth, and it's not deep. This guy's a monster.
Yeah.
Like a bad person.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, he's fine evolving over 1,000 years on Earth.
Yeah.
People will see him from time to time.
An evil genius with an unknown lifespan. Let's just send him to Earth.
They talk about his massive intelligence as a result of this experiment.
Yeah.
I guess we're supposed to believe that these lizards are intelligent in their own.
Well, no, it was something. It was that gas that was. So in his original experiment, he had this gas, and that when the gas canister went off, it excited the Morlocks. But that gas, when it touches your skin, it causes mutation. So I think it was just a crazy happenstance mutation. So his entire experiment, he wanted to recreate his experiment that was just a crazy fluke with Perry. He's just hoping that this is going to happen again. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe she would have had the intellect of a Morlocks and the lifespan of a human.
No,
I mean, nobody knows. It was
and the
ridiculous.
gas excites the Morlocks,
Yes.
but also kills the Morlocks because at one point the doctor's like, "Well, what happens if the Perry dies before the mutation?" He's like, "Aha! I've thought about this." The gas kills. Like, so it's like
Doesn't make any.
Really dumb. Like
there was one thing I did like though, so not to be all negative about this. The creature design of the Bandrel. You only see them on the viewer, but the Bandrel ambassador. It really reminded me of something like a Farscape sort of creature. So it was obviously a puppet or whatever that they were doing, which is such a nice thing to do, where it doesn't have to look very humanoid. You can do something much different when it's just this creature that's on a screen. I thought that was actually very effective. The voice was really annoying because we just talk.
Yeah,
like
the voices
this, we're very peaceful.
But they
looked really cool. Yeah.
And they're sending diplomats to the planet at the story's conclusion.
Right.
Don Jr. is now in charge.
Oh, that's going to end well.
He's become the new whatever.
He's declared that he's now the new Malin. No election. It's just no election. Well, there was never really an election. It was just the Borat.
My wife
said, now you're it. But
right. So he's decided that he's the ruler. And then they leave.
Yeah.
And then it's the end.
So there is a reason that this. So you were saying like this wasn't the worst that you've seen. We definitely say that the Twin Dilemma is worse than this.
It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst I've seen. But
I just want to say,
just as bad as some other bad ones.
Totally. Yeah. It's pretty horrible. In some of the polls they've done, this has ranked either as the next to worst, just above the Twin Dilemma. Or I think in a more recent poll, the fourth from worst of all Doctor Who stories. I can see that. It's just, like I said, the first half was fine, and you said that there was a good story in here. The second half was both too long and too rushed because they couldn't be bothered to figure out any logic to wrapping the story up. So everything was just like, okay, I guess this is how we're going to end it. Meanwhile, you spend 20 minutes climbing down a crystal cave and watching Perry scream at a monster that's not going to attack her. It just, I don't know whose fault it is, but I blame everyone. It was just not, you could have made it shorter and better at the same time.
Yeah, so this is what we said. This is written by Glenn McCoy, who I believe this is his first story.
From what I see, it's his only story.
Okay, so first and only.
Which is fine by me.
And Pennant Roberts directed it. I don't know if we've seen a Pennant Roberts Who story before it. The name sounds new.
Pirate Planet, Shada. We didn't see though. Face of
he
Evil.
directed Shada and Pirate Planet?
Yeah.
Really? So that's interesting because like
Pirate Planet was
Pirate
fun.
Planet's so good and it has such a good sense of humor.
Sense of humor,
this
yes.
Probably could have done better with a sense of humor.
Right.
Like, there wasn't a.
There was
I
not.
guess maybe the humor they tried was not funny.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, I mean, for sure.
So. That's what happens when Douglas Adams, I guess, isn't writing.
Yeah, that's what we needed.
Sorry, McCoy.
Would have loved to have seen this with Douglas Adams instead.
Yeah, no, it's just like not a great.
It's not one of the better ones.
Did we hear from anyone about what they thought of this story, Dan? Unless you have anything else to add.
Just the one thing I wanted to add briefly, just because I'm sure everyone that's listening to this already knows this, but the actor who played Tecker, Paul Darrow, was on this show that we've been told that we should watch, Blake 7, and Colin Baker made a guest cameo on Blake 7. So this is, I don't know if this is actually true, but I've read this in several different places, but Paul Darrow, Tecker, was not happy with how Colin Baker was guesting on Blake 7. He his overacting and bombastic style. So this is supposed to be supposedly retribution.
Revenge?
Yeah, he came back and was chewing up the scenery in order to get him back for how much he hated
now
that.
I want to go and look up the Colin Baker episode and see how terrible he was on that.
I mean, I can pretty much conjure that image without much effort in my head on what he must have done there. So I don't know. Maybe it's apocryphal and didn't really happen, but I just think that's fantastic.
Where did you hear that?
Oh, I read it on the TARDIS.wikia, and I also read it somewhere else. I want to say it was like Wife in Space.
Actor, though? Was that from like what the actor had said?
I don't know. I didn't follow the original source. Gosh, I'm not going to do that much research. Jesus.
Well, that makes it a little bit cooler.
Yeah,
I think,
I kind of like that.
He did it on purpose.
To really
just mess with Colin Baker.
I think it's great.
Well, what was everyone else's excuse?
Although
I think I thought the Borat
My wife.
was great,
and I like
as the fake Borat.
My wife.
That old guy. Like I would have.
I think they were
liked
both
him
fine.
To have been the villain the whole time because he was just like that calm. Like it felt very, very cult leader like.
Yeah,
everybody
was cool.
put on your sneakers, that kind of thing, and we're all getting in the spaceship.
Drink the Kool-Aid, ready to get on the spaceship comet.
Yeah.
I thought he was fun. I also actually liked the actual revealed Borat.
My wife.
The Magellan, I guess, was the scientist's name. He was fine. I mean, it was okay. He wasn't served well by the story or the dialogue or anything else, but I thought his performance was okay. But I think there's not much else to say about this.
Not a lot of meat to any of the roles for people even to do anything with. Like,
no.
Even Don Jr.'s character, Micros. And I half expected to follow him, starting something or doing something, and maybe the doctor would help him, or he'd work with the doctor and they'd overthrow the tyrant. But he disagrees with it, but he really has no effect on the outcome.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything but just say, hey, this guy's wrong, and then assume leadership at the end. Like, he doesn't earn that leadership. Like, what did he do?
He just survived. Like, that's literally...
Stop it.
He happened to be at the view screen whenever the ambassador was speaking. He's like, well, I guess I'm the villain now.
I'm the leader
I guess I'm the leader. Yeah, that was unearned.
I don't know, man. It was not cool.
Yeah. Well, we did get one response about this story from Kristaps Paddock when we put a call out to let people know that we were watching this story and what they'd think. Kristaps said, my condolences. I'd like to hear each of your brainstorm a better A, episode with a half-dinosaur man, and B, episode with H.G. Wells. Wells deserves so much better. And you did have some.
Yeah,
you did have some
I wrote
replies.
one, which I don't remember. It was.
I have it here, and I'll do it in your voice.
You read it. You read what I wrote. So
Eric, who is a professional comic book storyteller, came up with a much better story in about 3 seconds. On a dinosaur planet where humans and dinosaurs are in perpetual war, teenagers from each side fall in love. Their forbidden romance results in the birth of a dinosaur man. The creature unites the tribes into a formidable empire, but what starts with a benevolent rule ends in tyranny.
Yeah,
which is
I
great.
imagine a half man, half dinosaur, like sadistic 8-year-old, just at the wheel, just eventually eating babies of the human variety because he finds them delicious.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so that was the one, and then the other one was Adric, a reveal that this whole time Adric was the,
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells.
I'm down with that instead.
Do you have one, Dan?
No, I'm so baffled by this story as it is. My brain is scrambled. I agree, though. H.G. Wells is a really interesting character to bring into the Who. H.G. Wells is such an interesting character to bring into the Who universe. And there are echoes of his stories throughout this. The Time Machine, obviously, and etc. But it was such a bad use of it, and the characterization. I thought the character itself was fine, especially at the beginning of Herbert. But the way that it ended up was just so silly. It could have been done better.
Yeah.
But I don't write stories for Doctor Who. I couldn't come up with one.
Question for you about H.G. Wells, if you knew.
I don't.
Does he make another appearance in any other Doctor Who? I mean, he must, right? Is this the only time H.G. Wells has been?
Yes. So from what I was looking at, he doesn't make another appearance, but they do make slight nods to it. Different doctors are reading different novels of his at different points in time. So they do make reference back to H.G. Wells, but not in any direct way. Oh, remember that time that we traveled together? It's not really anything like that.
All right. So all he got was Timelash.
All I got was Timelash.
Sorry, H.G. Wells.
You deserved better.
All right. Here's a question for you, Dan.
Uh-oh.
You're trapped, lunatic genius, an evil genius, half man, half dragon, tells you that you have to watch one Doctor Who story. Is it Timelash or is it Concord? I mean, Time Cop. Now, what is it called? Time Flight. You have to watch either Time Flight or Timelash.
Oh,
Which is it going to be?
Man, this is going to be controversial, but I'd say Timelash.
Overtime. I can't remember a single thing about Concorde other than a Conqueror is in it and the plane crashed.
Yeah, and they have to repair the plane. And
they were Mirage planes.
Tegan does get to actually be an air stewardess at one point and gets the group of people to
watch Concorde Time Flight again.
But there was so much in there that was so horrible as well. I wouldn't want to watch either of these again.
Is that it? Did we get more?
No, that was it. Sorry.
Nothing?
Nope. If you guys want to tell us what you thought about that, we will be happy to read about it next time on the next episode. Which is what? What do we have coming up next there?
All right. Now we start the end of Colin Baker. So this will go up on May 30th, Timelash, and then we start Trial of the Time Lord. So that's The Mysterious Planet in June, Mind Warp in July, Terror of the Vervoids in August, and The Ultimate Foe and the end of Colin Baker at the end of August.
See, what you just said was we're coming up to the end of Colin Baker, and all I heard was the rest of my life will be Colin Baker.
We have 4 more Colin Baker stories. Oh. But they're all... We haven't seen these.
No.
As you all know, we're watching these for the first time. So I don't know how tightly Trial of a Time Lord is as far as it's one story.
Right.
Or is it going to be like the Key to Time or Key of Time or whatever it was called, where they're loosely connected but not really. So I don't know. We'll see.
I'm guessing it's going to be more of the latter. It's just going to be
the fact that it's a trial, though. Like, I don't know. I'm interested to see what that means.
Well, does that mean is it like an actual court trial, or is it like
it a court trial of like, are you the worst doctor? And then and
everyone
all the
says
evidence,
yes.
And we have to rewatch all of these.
And then, it's just a retrospective. The whole thing is a worst of. And then we get to get Sylvester McCoy. Is it that, or is it like trial, like the Odyssey? Like it's I
didn't even think.
That's
of that.
what I'm worried
like
about.
The trial of Reed Richards, where he's on trial,
like the Menendez brothers sort of trial of the century.
You're probably right. Maybe it is like.
I'm afraid it might be.
Trial.
I don't know. We'll find out over the course of the next lifetime.
You just totally blew my mind.
I'm sorry, buddy. It's better than doing a retrospective of all of Colin Baker's worst moments, which is just the entire run over again.
Now, I don't know how many we've missed.
It doesn't feel like any.
I feel like we've watched all of the Colin Baker ones except for, unfortunately, BritBox does not have any Dalek ones.
Yeah.
And we sort of are assuming that has to do with the rights thing. Maybe somebody has the rights to the Daleks that isn't allowing it, or whatever the reason.
But we've seen other Dalek stories, and
we have. But were they on here? Were they on BritBox?
Yeah, we definitely have.
Right.
I don't know what the reason is.
From here on out, there's no even with
Sylvester
McCoy, his Remembrance of the Daleks, I think is a McCoy one, is not on here.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll figure it out when we get there. But otherwise, I think we've watched almost everything that Colin Baker's done, which is a real tragedy considering we didn't watch much of the first, second, or third Doctors. It's just, we're coming back around.
Once we jump into Sylvester McCoy, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
A year.
11 Sylvester McCoys, and then we are done.
A year of Sylvester McCoy, and then
we start over.
We start over.
So if you have recommendations, we've pretty much, I think anything anyone recommended, I feel like we pretty much have put up there. I think we talked about making a poll at some point, or
when we get closer to the end of the Sylvester McCoy run, and maybe before, we still haven't decided if we're gonna watch. I always think of it as the Eric Roberts Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, the movie. I feel like we watched.
I know he wasn't the Doctor. I know he wasn't.
Once we watch that movie, we walk away from this podcast.
We kill each other.
That's the murder-suicide pact.
We drink hemlock at the beginning of the story, and we.
All right. So go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com and click on the schedule button, and you will see everything we're doing and everything we're going to redo. Please leave a comment if there's a story you want us to do that's not on there.
That's probably the best place to put it.
Yeah, because then it's on one page, and we won't overlook it, and we'll add it to the list, and we'll just do it.
I mean, if you want to,
close to the end.
It looks like we're close to the end, but that's a year. It's a full year plus. So you can do it there. If we have gotten some recommendations via email, so we'll collect those as well. But if you want to send us feedback, you can do that at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. Is a great place to do that. If you want to tweet at us, it's at TODW Show on Twitter. And on Instagram, we'll put up the GIFs there as well. Make sure you check out the funny GIFs we have on the episode page as well. Also catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/TODWS.
You got that right, Dan.
I did it right the first time.
You did it.
And that's it. So
that's it.
Thank you, folks, for listening, and pray for us as we finish the Colin Baker arc.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you, so keep those cards and letters coming. P.O. Box 2187? Is that right?
I don't know.
1187? 119.
It is on theolddoctorwhoshow.com.
P.O. Box 2131. Red Bank, New Jersey 07701. If you want to send us real things, which we like.
We do like that very much. All right. Well, until next time, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Goodbye, all. Peace.
Goodbye, world. I didn't even hit start.
And sadistic leader, the Borat. My wife, I think every time someone says Borat, I should put Scott Aukerman do a say.
Yes, it has to be Scott Aukerman doing it.
Every single time somebody says that. So that's going to give me a lot of work, but it's probably worth it.
Alegi toată viața și n-ai cui să-i faci bucurii. Tu vino acasă cu drag, la nevastă și băiat, și sunt tare fericit.
Where's my robot, you know?